Hey guys, Lane and Mike are back.
They are. What do
Yeah.
you want to talk about this time?
We're going to do a deeper dive into the beers from the Bobbing Bobber Brewery in Hutchinson, Minnesota.
Nice. Stick around.
Well, welcome to Brew Talk with the Beer Guys. I'm Greg, along with Brent and Shane. And in the studio, we've got Lane Wanis and Mike Lauer.
Correct.
All right, from Bobbing Bobber. And welcome back.
Yeah.
Good to be back.
Thanks for making the trek back over to Glencoe. We're in the depths of our studio here in Glencoe, Minnesota. And nice to have you guys here.
Bringing refreshments too.
Right?
Yeah.
As I said, my glass is magically full. I'm looking forward to it. Last time you brought, I want to say, Italian Pilsner.
Italian
That
Pilsner.
was delicious. So I'm curious to try this one. I don't know too much about it yet, but I'm sure we'll get into that. So last time we learned a little bit about Bobbing Bobber, and you brought that beer. And so what did you bring this time around?
This time around, we brought a cold IPA.
Oh,
Oh,
interesting.
that's much better than a warm one, for sure.
It is, and that question gets, we get our, when we're serving, it's like, isn't it supposed to be cold? It's like, no, it's more process than
Sure,
process
sure.
of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get into that in a minute, I guess. Huh?
Yeah. So, indeed. So we'll take a deeper dive into the beers and the styles at Bobbing Bobber and Hutchinson, and find out what all they've got and the flavors and notes. So we're looking forward to that. So Lane, let's start with you. What you said this is a cold IPA. Now, I've been seeing those kind of pop up lately when I've been touring around different breweries. I say, oh, they got a cold IPA. Is that kind of a new thing? Is that, because I've never seen that before, and all of a sudden I've seen a bunch.
As it is, it's finally starting to, grab some traction. It's in America, IPAs are one of the top selling beers.
Oh, yeah.
And brewers are always trying to create, I should say, new styles in the IPA category, just to stand out. And this is another one. You got your New Englands, your hazies, your juicies,
Right, yeah.
and
That's
there's
a good
definitely a
question itself.
market for them.
Okay,
for sure.
So what makes a cold IPA a cold IPA? I mean, obviously, as we talked about, people go, "Oh, cold, isn't it supposed to be cold?" Yeah, okay, but obviously, from a brewing standpoint, that's a little different than that.
So, I mean, the biggest thing that sticks out to me, and Mike can elaborate a little more on that. For me, we take a lager strand and we push it to the upper top half of its fermentation temperature.
Okay, yeah.
Not really, really cold, but more on the warmer side. It's kind of similar, how I can put it, as like a California Common.
Oh, yeah.
So is the idea then, because you're pushing the lager yeast a little higher, you still get a less of the ale bittering kind of to it?
Yeah, it's still not in that ale category.
Okay.
You're still keeping it within the parameters of a lager fermentation temperature. It's
Okay.
just on the higher end.
Sure. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
And that's, you get a quicker fermentation out of it.
When you're pushing that then too, if you do it wrong, then can you get off esters, or does it not matter as much in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, the yeast we use is pretty resilient
Okay.
to that. But yeah, you still got to be careful. I mean, you really got to know what the window is you got to work with, and then err on the side of caution too.
Okay.
You don't really want to push it too hard. Typically, you're going to get a little more sulfur production, so you got to be careful with that as well.
Okay.
You don't want sulfur in a clean beer like this. You definitely don't want sulfur.
What style is your favorite to brew?
Yeah. What do you really feel like? I really enjoy doing this one.
Oktoberfest, my
Oh,
Oktoberfest.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We talked before. It was kind of it was more of a challenge to me, and just putting the nose to the grindstone and really getting into the nuts and bolts of that beer. And once it started coming around, especially on the big system, I love making that beer, because it's just, for me, it's more of a festival wrapped around the beer itself, and seeing the people come out and just truly enjoying that beer, and man, it just puts a smile on my face.
Nice.
So I love making something that people just come out in groves to get, whether it's a festival or a certain type of beer.
Sure.
So
Okay. Mike, how about you?
My favorite beer, like the beer that I'm the most excited to brew, is a hazy, because there's a lot more to the process, and with how we have a 2-vessel system, we don't have a 3-vessel system, so we can't just pump over to Whirlpool. We have to get creative with how we do our whirlpool on our hazy brew days. Yeah, so that's just more fun because it's like there's actually some problem solving and there's some figuring out what it is.
There's
that we
kind
have
of
to
the haze craze going on right now.
Absolutely.
And everybody's got a hazy or two,
Yeah.
and they're certainly not all created equal.
No, there's
There's some breweries we've been to, and Carol, who's not here, but that's her thing. She's into that's her thing. She likes porters and stouts, but in the summer, especially really year round, she'll like the hazy. But a lot of times we'll go to one, she'll go, not happy with that one, but I don't know what it is, but and a lot of times the hazies, I can take them or leave them, but some are outstanding. So,
yes.
And I don't know what makes one different than the other, but in the brewing process, but it obviously got something to do with the hop and the I don't know.
Yeah, it is like any beer style in that it is a true 4-ingredient thing where you have to nail every single aspect of it, and if you cheat one of them, you're going to get a bad hazy. So you have to make sure that you have a good ratio of adjuncts. So having wheat and oats, that's big. You have to make sure that you use a very soft water profile, like that you would find out in Maine, Vermont. They have very very soft water,
which is basically hazies are a New England style.
Yeah, Vermont. They came out of the Alchemist. Is sort of the heady topper is sort of the original like hazy, and then with hops you want to use big fruity, juicy hops, and then yeast you want to use a like British derived yeast strain that's going to push big, as you guys said, you love the word stone fruit. It's going to push those stone fruit esters.
The stone fruit.
There we go. Perfect.
Our favorites.
Yeah. So it's just like any beer style. Like my favorite beer to brew at the Bobber, because this is the one that I brew the most, is the Kolsch, because that's the one where I feel like at every part of the process of brewing that beer, I can taste where we're at, and but yeah, same thing. Like we've been dialing in our water profile and grain, all of these things, and it's like if you try to cheat any of them, you're going to get a bad Kolsch. Same thing with hazies, same thing with sours. If you try to cheat it, you're going to get a bad.
Quick question on the hazies. Do you find those harder to repeat so they're consistent, or are they fairly easy to repeat?
Yeah, I don't think we've ever repeated one. We've just always made a different style.
So a different style each time.
Yeah, in New England.
I suppose every time you're trying to do it, you're trying to improve.
Absolutely.
And so you're constantly, like you said, tweaking. So you're trying to come up with that. We just do this.
Right. Yeah. So the first one we did, the Jig and Juice, I loved that beer. That was like, wow, that was great. And then the second one we did was a double New England. Yeah. And that one was, I was really pleased with how that one turned out, but it felt like every time I came into the tap room, it changed. Like that's the thing, the conditioning on a hazy is, if you don't have the lead times to do that, like a lot of the bigger breweries in the Twin Cities that make great hazies, it's more of like a 28 to 35 day beer. And for smaller breweries like us, we don't have that kind of. We can't just let a beer sit in a tank for 35 days if it's not a lager or something. Right. If it's not like the Oktoberfest where we're like, we're gonna move this beer for sure. So it's kind of like dialing in those beers. So is also, it's a tough style to make, but it's very rewarding. It's very fun to drink.
It is a fun style, piggyback. And you kind of, when Mike came on, kind of brought more of that.
Okay.
That Twin City vibe back, into the brewery, and you're like, this is what they're doing. We should start getting some of these styles in. And when we did, I was actually quite surprised. It's because sometimes you can kind of get in a little bit of a rut, and this is what I'm doing, and. He came in, we're thinking outside the box now a little bit, which is nice. Appreciate that. And we just bounce back and forth. But there's definitely a lot of room for IPAs in general.
Okay.
It's a very subtle beer.
Do you always do your own spin on the style of beers for Bobbing Bobber, or do you try to be more traditional in the brewing? Like, for example, a Kolsch. Do you go, we're going to go traditional, so it's a Kolsch that everybody recognizes, or we're going to do our own little spin on that?
You want to take this one?
Sure, yeah. It's both yes and no. I mean, obviously, you're limited to the ingredients that you can get. You're limited to the processes that you have. I will say that for our Kolsch, I have like been on a. Actually, this is one of my favorite stories. So before I was on payroll at the Bobber, and I was just kind of helping out, cleaning kegs and cleaning the brewery, whatever, stuff like that, helping out. I had convinced Lane to use K97, which is a Kolsch strain from Cologne over in Germany, on the Kolsch. And it like, for the Kolsch drinkers at the Bobber, it like polarized.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
They were just like, what did you do?
Yeah, because I was like, I want to use the German yeast strain on this. And I came in the next, and Lane was like, hey, we're going to go back to this strain that we had been using. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So I came in for the next brew day, and the guy at the time who was packaging, Brian, he had put a welcome back balloon on the fermenter. Because we had gone back to the original yeast strand. Because it was like his favorite beer, and then we changed the yeast strand, and then he hated it.
Oh, wow.
It completely transformed that beer.
Yeah.
It's with German styles in general, you walk that slippery slope. You got to be really careful.
Sure.
It's a stylistic beer. They always have been, and you want to keep it as close to style as possible.
Sure.
Yeah. So I would say we are heavily influenced by the style in the sense that we want it to be identifiable by the style, but I wouldn't say that we're trying to like out Kolsch Germany.
Right.
So
Sure.
it's like we want people to drink the Kolsch and go, yeah, this is a Kolsch, this is a great Kolsch. But then at the same time, we want them to be like, yeah, this is also the Bobber's Kolsch. Like it tastes like a Bobber beer. It's not just like any other Kolsch that you would, So that's kind of a tough question to answer, because it's like, yes,
Sure.
but also, again, understanding like.
Well,
It
of
tastes
course,
like you,
ingredients play a big factor. The water, you talked about that, and we aren't in Germany, so we don't have the exact same environment. Over here, it's going to be our own take on everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is your approach in developing a new brew?
Yeah, how do you
So we
go
sit
about
down.
picking something?
We sit down after we get done brewing, and we argue.
Oh, is that right?
Like two kids in a sandbox.
Yeah. No. We can't have. Oh, no. Yeah. You want it roasty? No. Yeah. No. It's all in good fun. But that's my favorite part of working at the brewery is when we sit down and when we like say like, all right, we're gonna brew this. And then it's like, then the fun begins, because then we sit down and we go, well,
sure.
how do we, what ABV, what kind of yeast we want to use, what kind of hot, and sometimes we'll bring in bring in other examples of it to sit down and drink and be like, what do we want to pull from this beer that we like? What do we want to change? How would we change or whatever? And I love it. I mean, because it's all in respect for the process, but those are the times when I can see like Lane just like rolling his eyes, being like, "Oh my gosh, like
what have you gotten me into?"
Yeah. Because for me, it's always like, let's start with a good base of oats. And
everything would be oats.
I love brewing with oats.
17 taps of oat beers.
So I don't know. For me, it's like if something is really picking up steam in the Twin Cities, I'll kind of.
Sure.
Be like, hey, these cold IPAs are getting big, or the Italian Pilsners are getting big, or whatever.
That's good. You get that connection to kind of bring that vibe out to rural Minnesota.
Yeah. So I mean, that's my approach. Is like, Modest brewed this beer that I really really like, and Lane, can we do it? What do you think? I mean, when you're the one that really kind of develops all the recipes.
We'll usually during brew day, right? We'll be going back and forth. We should do this. We got fall coming up, winter coming up. We should do this and this, and I'll take all that back and I'll just sit down and just research.
Okay.
It's like you said too. Drinking it isn't believing it. And taking that and then what can we do here? And then I basically when I do it, I just start from the back into the recipe. What do we want for yeast? That's going to finish the product.
Okay.
Do you want something rich and malty? Do you want something dry and malty? Do you want something that's going to attenuate and express the hops? That's where I start, is yeast selection, and then I just work my way right to the front.
Perfect.
Do you find your customers at the Bobber in Hutchinson that kind of go, hey, I'd really like to see this kind of beer, or why don't you brew something like this, or do you get lots of suggestions, or do they just kind of go with what you got?
Occasionals. I mean, yeah, you get the occasionals, or most of them want just stuff we've done already. They want it to come back.
Like Double Trouble?
Yeah, I do want Double Treble to come back.
That is definitely that's in the works. We're hoping. We got another beer in front of it, IPA beer, but we haven't brought it back in a while. The first one I made, I truly enjoyed it. And I think that was your favorite too. And then we remade it, and I used a different yeast on it, and it seemed like it dried it out too much.
Okay.
So it's just kind of really bitey. I mean, you need a lot of malt. Backbone.
And the problem with that, especially probably in the rural area, you get people that really aren't used to the big IPAs, and they might turn them off a little bit. They're not used to that bite, that edge.
Yeah.
Maybe they want
well, you
more.
get the. I mean, you can pull. I mean, you're pulling from all directions, right? So there's definitely a crowd for that. Your average person, I mean, they're after light and drinkable.
Yeah, especially out this way, and maybe everywhere. I don't know, but do you have pretty much a solid nucleus of surrounding area customers, or do you get a lot of people that come and go, they visit and they
Yeah, I mean, when we first opened, we had the, basically that we still have that community support, right? Mm-hmm. But it was a big community support and drawn from more of the little towns, and now we're seeing Twin Cities. We see a lot of Twin City folks coming up, and it's definitely our voice has been heard, if you want to put it that way, to where our draw is becoming a lot more. Well, I haven't seen this person. Well, I've seen this person. You know what I mean? I mean, the last couple of days we have had people coming up. Oh, first time at the Bobber, first time.
Oh, really?
So it's good to hear. Your name is getting out there, and you're influencing at that point.
Yeah, and I think the Bobbing Bobbers won some best ofs too, right? And the voting, I've seen some online voting, when they do the best of Minnesota kind of thing, and you guys have I think won it once, didn't you? Or came close to the end?
That must have been the March. What is that called?
So we won
March Madness.
We won two of the beer,
Madness.
the beer Paloma things. You won one for your Maibach, which is probably the biggest.
Which I forgot to bring up. I love making that beer as well.
Oh, the Maibach? Sure.
Yeah, and that's
German beers.
Yeah, and then we won back. There was a magazine called The Growler, and we won the best tap room or something.
Best tap room, best brewery, best fruited beer.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
nice.
Was that for the peach cream ale?
Yeah, the peach cream ale.
Yeah. Right. How about that? So
yeah,
obviously it's well received.
Yeah, and it's great to hear. It's always nice to, and I take all. You got to take the good with the bad too. You're going to take some criticism as well, and you take it to a grain of salt and learn from it.
Well, and that we find that too, is we'll go to breweries and they'll say, hey, personally, we all have our favorites and things that we like, and I was like, we've been to some breweries where we kind of go, we're good.
That's the disappointment. Yeah. You go somewhere and you try okay, I'm going to do a flight because I don't know anything about you, and you get done with the flight and you're like, thanks.
Yeah, have a good day.
Let's settle up.
But that's
that can happen. Yeah.
Nature of the beast.
Right. And sometimes it's just the day. It's not necessarily their beer, but your palate might be off that day, or something. You had something to eat earlier that counteracted. So, but that's a tough one. But well,
what is the signature flavor profile that makes 3BC unique?
Is there? Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I know what I would say.
That's a good question. We'll start with you.
Yeah. So for me, because this is it's sort of the opposite of the way that I think about brewing beers. For us, I would say it's about. I was actually thinking about this while I was driving here because I figured you would ask this question.
I was not. So
for me, everything is about it being clean beer, and the way that, in my opinion, the way that we achieve that is by using very tried and true mash temperatures, boil times, hop schedules. We're very cautious and careful with our yeast strand. When in our fermentation, it's not that we don't take risks, because we definitely do take risks. Anytime you got 2 Lauers in the building, you're taking risks. Yeah, it's 2 risks right there. But
risky business over there.
But just we have our process is so dialed in that we make very clean, approachable, consistent beer. And to me, that's sort of the every beer we make, in my opinion, is just very clean, which I love. I love that about our beer.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Mike.
Yeah.
And what else? I mean,
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously being a cities person, I like the fast and loose, like hot temperatures on your long mashes, long boils, hot fermentations. I like those types of beers. Those are fun. But from a brewing standpoint, I like this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. And we know it's going to work. And if we want to tweak things, we can, and we're not afraid to tweak things because we know we have such a solid base for our process. So, I think our signature flavor, outside of, I would say, just German beers, but is just clean,
very approachable.
Approachable beers.
Nice. Keeping it clean and approachable.
Yeah.
What would you say your number one seller is? What is your most popular beer?
Oh, it's the IPA.
Hands down the IPA.
Oh,
House IPA.
Yeah.
I mean, last year, our Kolsch and IPA were
Yeah.
kind of neck and neck, and now this year it's not even a competition. It's
I
IPA.
think that's always a safe go-to when I go in there. Nothing else. I know I'm going to have a crappie flop. What else you got today?
Yeah. And like I said, to me, the crappie flop is just a clean sort of West Coast, Mid Coast IPA.
Yeah.
I mean, really, there's nothing fancy about it. It's just a clean,
Yeah.
It's a great backbone for an IPA.
It's not quite West Coast because it's not that punchy in the face bitter.
Yeah, but it's not quite like, to me, the obviously the hallmark Midwest Coast, whatever they call it,
Sure.
Furious.
The no coast.
Yeah, the no coast would be Furious.
Sure.
And we're not at that bitter, that big, but yeah, just a classic profile, and but yeah, it's clean.
Huh, nice. I'm just going to have a couple questions quick here on food pairings with some beers. Can you recommend a pairing with some of your beers? Like, what would you pair with like one of your stouts, or what would you pair with your Pilsner, or that kind of thing?
I love that question. I love beer and food pairings.
Yeah,
It's really fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
For me, I mean, IPAs, I would like, for example, the cold IPA or even our house IPA. I mean, that would be great with something spicy seafood ish. That's right, because it helps cleanse that palate, and then the hops kind of complement the spice with the food as well. Darker beers are Hootie Hoo. It's our salted brown. I mean, I've drank it with, I'm not going to lie, I've drank that with ice cream cake.
Oh,
I'm not going to lie.
No, hey, we're not opposed to that.
Right? Yeah. A little dessert and beer, yum.
It's not bad, It seems like the darker beers go really well with desserts, red meats as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love the Hootie Hoo. It's one of my favorites, and that one I actually like. If I have it at home, to have it with like a nutty cheese.
Oh,
actually, because you get that sweetness and you get that saltiness from it's a salted caramel or salted brown ale. So it's uses salt, no shot.
right.
But yeah, that's just a great balance of flavors, or even like. Or like a charcuterie board, like if you're going to have cheeses, and maybe you're going to have some like grapes or whatever. The Hootie, that's
be
dynamite for that.
What pairing does your wife like?
Oh, that's a good question. I got the perfect answer. We brought a growler of cream ale home. She's kind of a fan of that cream ale, and we had a block of white sharp cheddar.
Okay.
And we sat down. And she took a bite because I was like, no, I'm good. I'll just have my beer. And she took a bite of the cheese and drank the cream ale. She's like, you have to try this. This is life-changing.
Life-changing, wow.
She may not have said it like that. That's how I perceived it.
Right.
But anyways, I took a bite of the cheese and and it's just, for as dry as a beer that can be, crisp, clean, it turned it sweet.
Okay.
The sweetness of the beer really just popped in your mouth. It wasn't like cloying. It was just that perfect. The malt really brought the malt to the forefront. So you typically wouldn't get that in your average cream ale.
Does she let you live that down now?
No, I'm just. She
And
always suggests it. It's like,
what was her name?
It was Beth.
make sure I get
That's
all
my
that.
wife's name. Yeah. She's pretty particular on her beers.
Yeah.
But she's been opening up her palate and trying new things.
And that's one thing we've
That's
always
great.
talked about on Beer Guys TV. Hey, try some things. Even if you don't think you'll like them, try them. You're not, try nothing else. You get a 5 ounce or whatever, or a flight. You don't know. You might go, huh? I never knew that. I've seen so many people go, I never thought I'd like that.
Right.
And especially with food pairings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, especially with that, being able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a lot of lactose off of cheese. Will mellow out an IPA.
Yeah, cheese is it's great. It'd be
Scoop of ice cream and a stout.
Yeah,
you go.
a good heavy stout.
Sounds crazy, but
It does, but people think we're nuts when we talk about
Right.
it. Then they try it and go, huh? You know what? That wasn't bad. So yeah, don't be afraid to try different things, folks. That's what makes it all kind of fun. So
Well, let's talk about this beer. So the beer you brought, it's cold IPA. What's the name of the beer? Did you pick a name yet?
Cold start.
Cold Start.
Cold
Okay.
Start. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thought of it just cold start an engine.
Oh yeah. I've been
It'd be a
there.
bullet engine.
Well, it is Minnesota, folks, and
Yeah.
if you've never been here in the
Right.
middle of January, you can.
Yeah.
Hopefully none of that's happening at this time of year.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So
You've talked a little bit about a little bit of a background on this beer.
Yeah.
But what makes this unique to Bobbing Bobber with a cold IPA?
So like Mike was saying, his brother kind of came in. He had a beer, cold IPA. He's like, we probably should do something like this. And me and him sat down, drank. I don't know, did you try it? Were
Nope,
you up
this
there?
is- this was all you and Ty.
This was me and Ty.
Okay.
I didn't.
Yeah.
And then when Mike, you came in and like via your brother's request, we're probably going to be doing a cold IPA. Yeah. Because I drank and I'm like, I can see people getting on board with this, color-wise, because people drink with their eyes.
well, right. It
It's
looks
true.
Yeah.
It
It looks
is.
like a lager.
People drink with their eyes. At points it can be a little like, But anyways, it's very, it looks approachable.
Yep.
And I feel it drinks the same way. It's the ABV is a little slippery slope.
Which is ABV on this is what?
7.1.
Oh, 7.1.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste like a 7.
Right, that's the
That's the slippery
Yeah, it's
slope part.
It is very hidden in there.
no.
And the IBUs?
I think that one came in about between 65 and 70.
And those don't seem sharp at all
soft. It's
either.
a soft bitter too.
Yeah.
And it had a lot to do there again with hop varieties.
Yeah.
Okay.
We kind of been on a noble hop kick, I think.
This
with
was
Italian
this was a blend of noble hops and American hops.
It was.
Okay.
That was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun. Yeah.
Oh.
This was. I mean, I love this beer because my brother Tyler started, brewing with us, and he was doing packaging or whatever, and he was. Anyone who works back of house, I consider them a brewer.
Sure.
You're a brewer.
Yep.
And Tyler was like, I just don't feel like I'm a brewer. And I'm like, you're a brewer, you're a brewer, you're a brewer. And then I told him, like, pitch a beer style to Lane. And so, like, to see my younger brother, like, kind of grab onto this beer style and pitch ideas. And this is, like, one of the beers that Tyler was like, I helped design this beer. I feel like I'm a real brewer now. And that was just amazing. For me as a brother, I was like...
Well, I mean, for me, too, it's just kind of, you're packagers and, they don't feel as involved with the process. So him to come up and be like, hey, I'm thinking this. What can we do? Can we do it? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's very tasty, easy drinker. I mean, compared to what it is, I was like, ooh, yeah, 7.1. Okay.
Yeah. Now that was our. I
was testing the beer. I was fermenting, and we kind of knew going into it, it's probably going to not be 6%, but that came and gone way early in fermentation. I'm like,
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
What should we be looking for in this beer with aroma, flavors, mouthfeel, that kind of
So
thing?
it's a profile on this
we can
one.
both kind of go off
Yeah,
on this
sure.
one. I mean, it was a fun beer. Like I said, created. It was the seed was planted by Tyler. We took off with it, and we're like, we're gonna put our own spin on the cold IPA because typically They're more your C hop type beers. They're going to look at being like Chinook, Centennial, Cascades. You know.
When you said C hops, I'm like,
yeah,
I
they
haven't
call
heard
them
that
C hops.
Columbus,
Columbus,
CTZ, yeah.
CTZs. Yeah, I
Oh.
mean, they're more American
C-hops.
styles. But
Okay.
we kind of went out. That's where we went outside the box with it.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. We used El Dorado and whole melon in the whirlpool and also in the dry hop. And that's when you came in. It was like we should dry hop at colder
temperatures. Yeah.
And then you could.
Yeah. So I guess for me, a cold IPA is like it's the American response to the IPL. So the India Pale Lager is a British, in my opinion, a British. You're gonna use you're gonna lager it, and you're gonna use noble hop, maybe noble hops. You're gonna use British hops, things like that, and it's because obviously that style was kind of also made popular along with the IPA with bringing the beers from Britain to India, and they used hops as a preservative.
Yep.
Whereas with the cold IPA, it's more of the American response. So it uses more traditional American ingredients. So you're going to use maybe corn in it, or you're not going to necessarily highlight like a German malt or a British malt or something like that. And then you're going to use clean American hops as well. So you're going to have that like soft sweetness again. You're going to have a breadiness to it, lighter in color, obviously, so it's not going to look like an IPA. It's going to look more like a Pilsner or whatever. Yeah. And then, so our take on it was that we blended the whole melon, which, again, that German flavor profile with El Dorado, which Tyler's obsessed with. Like,
it's a beautiful hop.
It's a beautiful hop,
It's just melony, just pure melon, watermelon.
Yeah.
And, piggyback with the Hull melon. For me, at first, personally, I thought when I first tasted this beer off the fermenter, to me it smelled just like a Pilsner. And that made me a little nervous. I'm like, this is, you get a lot, I got a lot of like grassy, heavy herbal. And as this is one of these aged beers, as it's been sitting in the cooler, the melon's been ramping up, ramping up. So.
Yeah. And then we dry hopped this cold, which normally you dry hop at, let's say 67 degrees or room temp, and we dry hop this one cold, and that's going to pull out certain oils that are going to push these melon flavors.
And that's just stuff the average. For me, most people I would think, wow, what? There's so much more to this.
There's just a pile to it, and the sky's the limit. I mean,
that's very interesting. Yeah.
Maybe we'll have them on the show again, and we'll talk a little bit about the science behind the beer.
Yeah, I like that idea.
How's that sound?
Would you guys be up for coming back again?
Love to talk.
And will you bring beer again?
One last question, but something fun again before we wrap up. If your brewery was magically transported to a different time period, which era would it thrive in? And how do you think it would adapt?
I think I know what Lane would say on this one, but a different time.
Germany.
Yeah. That's what I would. Yeah,
I figured.
I'd have to work on my German, but
Yeah, me too.
I think, absolutely. Like
Bavaria, that area.
Bavaria.
It's just
early Germany or early Austria, Bavaria,
you brewed
Belgium.
with very just traditional techniques, waters. You can't change none of that. They pull off the river as it's coming down, so the water you get is what you wrap your beers around.
Okay.
And it's very fun, and it makes the each area's beer unique to itself.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Cool.
I agree. That's where I would love to.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. I mean, I've heard.
Yeah. Love to go.
Well, nice.
Yeah.
Very
It's
good.
very cool. Well, we're going to have to wrap this one up at this time, but we've run out of time for this episode, so we'd love to have you back again if you'd be up for it sometime.
Absolutely.
Guys, wander on over here. Glencoe's not too far from Hutchinson. Hopefully you can make it. And but we'll have you back talk a little bit more about some of the other styles of beer, some of the science, like Shane said, and all that. So I guess for Mike and for Lane and for Brent and Shane, I'm Greg. And until next time, beers to ya. Clink. Yeah, again, the plastic glasses. Last time we had these here too, didn't we? Hey, I didn't get clank. Yeah, I know. We're on a budget. You know,
Beer Guys TV reminds you to drink responsibly. Our reviews are honest opinions. Your opinion and taste may vary. We encourage you to try beers and products for yourself and form your own opinions. Remember to check out Beer Guys TV on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us what beer you like and send us your suggestions for us to review. You can contact us at beerguystv@gmail.com.
we've been surprised, haven't we?
Yeah.
Like, wow, it's so different.
Yeah, we just love blending the two hops. Just really they didn't clash. They just went well.
Yeah.
There, I got it.
Did you?
Yeah, I had to do that. I didn't think that stain would get to me, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I smell it.
I remember when Tyler called me. He's like, "Hey, we're brewing in a cold IPA." I was like, "Are we?"
First I know of this.
Yeah, first time. Yeah.
So
Top
and
secret
it's brewed. So cold IPA is brewed with lager yeast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys. That's it. Thanks for coming.
That's all you got. That's all you
That's
got.
the show.
Wow. Take 2, 3, whatever. All right. Hey guys, Lane and Mike are back.
They are.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about this show?
We're going to do a little bit of more of a deep dive into some of the brews from the Bobbing Bobber Brewery in Hutchinson, Minnesota.
Oh, I'm excited. Stick
All right.
around.
Stick around. Stick around. What do you want to do over it?
Well, when it says S, it ends there.
Oh, well, I didn't see the stick around part. I was ad-libbing.
Well, you already ad-libbed the Bobbing Bobber.
I know. You're
All right.
supposed to catch that. So, from the top?
Yep. Do again.
Okay.